with Dinshah. She's the author of a book called Dating Vegans, Recipes for Relationships. And the topic today is relationships versus vegan values. And it's sponsored by Plant-Based Treaty and Animals Aid Movement. And to introduce Dinshah, I'd like to invite Peter McQueen, who has known Anne and her parents since 1984, and Jenny McQueen, who has known since, is it 2000? 2000. So it's something that's very special. You know, Anne Dinshah's family has been called a dynasty. You know, they're the founders of the American Vegan Society. So I'd like to introduce Peter and Jenny McQueen.
Welcome. It's so exciting to have you here in Toronto. So welcome. I'm going to read out the bio from the new book, Dating Vegans, Recipes for Relationships. So there we go. It's Anne Dinshah is a lifetime vegan and author of Healthy Hearty Helpings, a vegan cookbook for busy people who wish to eat well. She's co-authored another cookbook with the 4-ingredient vegan. Her career as a rowing coach takes her to a variety of locations throughout the United States, where she embraces the challenges of everyday life with focus, persistence, and grace. Anne enjoys many forms of athletics, from swimming to wrestling. She's been fortunate to become friends with many men and experience romantic dating adventures. With the help of non-vegan friends who appreciate her vegan cuisine, Anne is building her stone and timber frame writer's cabin in western New York State. She's committed to building bridges as a vegan in a culture that depends heavily on animal products. And this book was produced in, what's the year? So this was 2012. So yes, amazing. Okay, I'll pass it across to you, sir.
Sure. As Anita said, I met Anne back in 1984. It was the very first, I would say, I knew it as a vegetarian congress, but it was really vegan, even then. It was the World Vegan Congress near Baltimore, Maryland in the summer of 1984. First event of that sort I attended. I remember sitting in the plenary session and realizing I'd never been, there were like 300-400 people, probably 400 people there, and realized I'd never been among so many vegetarians and vegans before. It was like, blew my mind. We were all much younger then, and I was a confirmed lacto-vegetarian at the time, lacto-ovo-vegetarian really at the time, but it was my first sort of introduction to vegan food and to the ethical side of veganism. At the time I had met some people in Toronto who called themselves vegans, but we would now call them plant-based because they were just doing it for health reasons. It was strictly a health regime to them. And I was doing it for the animals, so I wasn't going to go vegan. That's for these health fanatics. You know, so that was my attitude anyway. But having that year and subsequent years meeting true vegans, people who were in it for the animals, for the ethics, really helped me transition to being vegan. And I have a little story in, well, it's a small chapter in another one of Anne's books called, co-authored with her late father, Powerful Vegan Messages. And I was very fortunate to meet Anne's mom and dad, H.J. Dinshah and Freya Dinshah, at that first Congress that I was at, and connected many times over the years, and they even helped plan the World Congress, International Vegetarian Union World Congress that we hosted here in Toronto in the summer of 2000, and at which I married Jenny, who was just here. So I'll turn it over to Anne to talk about the topic and the books that she's written.
Thank you. So before I start, I have to give you a little bit of family background. My dad visited a slaughterhouse in 1957 in Philadelphia, and he went vegan on the spot. So a lot of times when I speak, I wear red shoes like these. I don't know if you can see them in there. So anyway, that's to remind you of my dad's blood-saturated shoes when he emerged from the slaughterhouse and went vegan that day. But it's also to remind me that I have the power to walk my own path. I don't have to be my parents. So these are a style that he would never wear, and it helps me be a little more extroverted when I need to talk in front of groups. So this is one of my favorite talks to do. It's based off of this book, but even though the book has been out for a decade, I think we still have a lot of issues with people who are vegan and people who are not vegan, trying to get along. When someone suddenly becomes vegan, then they often have a hard time being accepted by their family, their friends, their coworkers, their neighbors, whoever it is that you used to socialize with. And so that's why I enjoyed doing this talk, because even though it stemmed from a book that was about romance, you can really apply the principles to everything that you do, anytime that you're interacting with another person who might not have the same values as you. So we'll start with you learning a little bit about me and my thought processes, and then we'll be a little more interactive towards the end, and you could be thinking about who it is that you really want to have a better relationship with, and we'll get to that part. So the thing about relationships when you're dating is everybody winds up eating together. Like, if it's not the first date, second date, you will go out to eat. And that doesn't necessarily happen with your neighbors. So for me, I'm a cookbook author. I do a lot of other things too, but I actually like someone to be a challenge. If they like every vegetable possible, then it's not really that much of a challenge to cook something for them. So I'm going to start out with telling you a little bit about Robert. Robert lives in Columbus, Ohio, and all the guys in this book signed a waiver, so I'm allowed to talk about them. Robert specifically asked me a couple years ago to let people know that he is still single. And so if he sounds like someone you'd like to date, let me know and I can help you guys exchange information. Anyway, so Robert admits he's a food hypocrite. Perhaps the challenge of his idiosyncrasies is part of my attraction to him. Robert hates onions and greasy foods, but he likes onion rings. He likes peanuts and cashews, but no other nuts. And they cannot be an ingredient in anything just eaten out of hand. He likes fruit juice, fruit gels, and fruit. But he will not eat a fruit gel with chunks of fruit in it. He will only eat foods of the same texture in each bite. He does not like blueberries or muffins, but blueberry muffins are the only kind of muffin he will eat. He likes fig Newtons, but refuses to try eating a fig. His favorite color is purple, but he will not eat eggplant, plums, or anything else purple except black grapes. So if you have someone like that, it becomes a really fun challenge to try and cook. We did wind up cooking together many times, and found a lot of things that were based on pasta or potatoes that he really enjoyed, and then we'd add a bunch of vegetables that he could tolerate. And so the thing is, though, you really don't need recipes to cook spaghetti and make some sauce for it. So there actually aren't any recipes from him in here, but my formula when I get inspired to cook for someone. So first of all, to write this book, I was dared to date only non-vegan women for an entire year. And so if someone was vegan, it was like, wow, you seem great, but sorry, wait a year, because I'm not allowed to date you right now. And on the first date, I would have to figure out if I liked them. And I was living in Erie, Pennsylvania, which you guys in Canada probably don't know much about, but I dated the 3 totally dateable guys in Erie, and then I moved to Columbus, Ohio, where there were a lot more guys, because it's a capital city and it has a huge university. So when you're doing research, you gotta really go where the people are. Okay, so my first date, I would decide whether I was interested in them. But you as an audience aren't gonna wanna read the same guy, because we all have a type that we go for. So I had to find a muse, and they had to be different from the previous person that I dated. And so the first date would just establish whether I had any sort of spark. The second date, I would interact with them more, and if they didn't already know that I was vegan, I would make sure that they knew for sure that I was vegan. And I would ask them if we could do a third date, and I would put them at ease that I would cook for them, but I would ask them their 3 favorite vegetables. So they would have to tell me their 3 favorite vegetables and their favorite type of dessert. And anything they were allergic to, wouldn't touch, that kind of thing. So it really narrowed down the choices of what I could play with for food, for some people anyway. So that was my basic formula. So on the third date, in some cultures it's like, hey, third date, just sleep with them. No, better than that. I had them sign a waiver that I could take their picture, use their first and last name, create recipes for them, and they were allowed to read what was going to be published and do a little editing if necessary. I should probably say I'm not capable of writing fiction, so everybody in here is a true story. But that's really the formula that I still use today. Is it doesn't matter if it's my neighbors coming over for dinner. I know what they're allergic to or they won't eat. You know, I don't care if you don't like mushrooms, fine. You know how many other things I can make? So sometimes people are too helpful and like too many things. So when I asked my friend Dave, and Dave and I used to do construction together, he built chimneys for a living. And I was still coaching rowing at the time, but building my house, I wanted to get some other skills, so I would barter with him. And so I would mix up the mortar for building the chimney and hand it up to him. So sometimes we'd eat together. And I thought it would be fun to cook a vegan meal for him, so I asked him what his 3 favorite vegetables are. He said potatoes, all squashes, cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, onion, radish, lettuce. I laughed at how he's really good at counting bricks, but not so good at counting to 3 vegetables. I scribbled them all down. He said, I never had a veggie I didn't like. So I was trying to figure out a challenge. How do you make something like that into a challenge? So then he said, but I've never had an eggplant. Okay, we can work with that. I said, promise me you won't eat an eggplant until we have dinner, I requested. He said, you want me to remain an eggplant virgin until you can have your way with me? He grinned in agreement. The next week, in the midst of restoring the mortar on a stone chimney originally built in 1875, Dave savored a picnic lunch, including a sandwich I made using baked eggplant. I'm the only vegetarian Dave knows. Keep the bar low. He didn't even know any other vegetarians. So I asked him, do you know what a vegan is? He said, vegan? Never heard of it. I said, you want to take a guess? He said, vegan. He thought for a moment. Someone who never has sex? So, it's interesting how, even just 10 years ago, there are people who never heard of vegan. And so it all depends on where you go. He was a lot of fun to cook for. We made a mashed potatoes dish. Then we made them into like little balls and rolled them in potato chips to give them a little extra crunch. But the center of it, you could just serve regularly. It's mashed potato and peas mixed together. You know how it's annoying when you're tracing those peas all around your plate? Just mix them into the mashed potatoes. So that's what we did. We also did some stuffed mushrooms, and I made him oatmeal raisin cookies. Kind of normal American guy things. Who doesn't like oatmeal raisin cookies? And if you don't like them, you can just switch it out and make them chocolate chip. So I have a lot of fun with real people. I've never had somebody not like my food, like really blatantly hate it, because I put them at ease. And I think that's what we need to do if we're trying to build bridges with people who are not vegan, is they're already, if they know that you're vegan, they're already a little nervous eating with you, because they don't realize how many foods they already eat that are vegan. Like, did you eat an apple? Well, that was vegan. So just trying to disarm them in whatever relationship you have. And if you're going to, say, a potluck for work, or for me, maybe a sporting group potluck, I would make stuff that looked kind of normal but tasted better. And so one time I was at a rowing potluck, and I made sweet potato quesadillas. So sweet potatoes can be kind of cheesy looking, and they were inside of tortillas, wheat flour tortillas, and baked, so they're nice and crispy. So I baked the sweet potato first, mashed it up, put a little vegan mayo in there, maybe a little nutritional yeast, and fold it in there. And if you want to get really creative, you can put other things in there too, but that's just the basics. And I would make a batch of cookies. So whenever I go somewhere, you always want to have a main dish and a dessert, because everything else doesn't really matter that much. You know, everybody can make a salad. It's not that hard to make a soup. But what people remember is the last thing they eat. So you've got to have a dessert. And the thing that people are scared of is that they're going to be missing that main dish. They're going to go hungry. So I don't care if you don't know how to cook. You got to learn how to make a couple of great main dishes, your go-to main dishes, and at least one dessert. And so when I go to a potluck, and this one, for example, I had the quesadillas and I had the cookies. If people don't know that you're vegan, I would just load up my plate with the stuff that I knew was vegan. I'd walk around and I'd eat it. And everybody's always talking about, hey, how good is this? Oh, what's that you got? Is it good? Yeah, it's great. I didn't have to tell them it was vegan and what it is until like later in the night, and people would try and figure out who brought what. And then I'd let them know, you know, what it is. Oh, this isn't cheese in here. This is sweet potato. This is amazing. And cookies, there's something magical about vegan cookies, especially the ones that I've had. I think they taste more full of flavors because I put so many different things into it. The classic cookie that people are used to is just like butter, sugar, flour. Maybe there's something else like chocolate chips in there. Maybe there's some eggs, whatever it is. But you think about what flavors are in those, and it's not exciting to the palate. I closed the book, so I don't know if I can find quickly what I put in the oatmeal raisin cookies, but maybe I can. Well, never mind. I'll just stop at chocolate macadamia nut cookies. Okay, so there's some baker's chocolate and some vegan margarine. But those of you who are like not into having oil and stuff, you can adapt. You can use your applesauce and other things. There's some whole wheat pastry flour. I do use a little bit of cane sugar when I'm making things for other people, because it's what they're used to, but I do cut it way down from what a classic cookie would have. A banana. A mashed banana is amazing, taking the place of an egg, and it actually really gives a nice hint of extra flavor in there. I like to use maple syrup, soy milk, vanilla, and of course in this recipe there's macadamia nuts and chocolate chunks. In the oatmeal raisin cookies, I think I put some orange juice in there that gives it just a little bit of excitement, and it also helps the cookies rise just a little bit because it interacts with the baking soda. So absolutely main dish and cookies, because they're easy to take. You don't have to worry about cutting them up. Like if you take a cake or something, you have to worry about making a mess. People just take cookies. So, you know, you gotta know your audience. If they're coming to your house, then maybe you make a cake that takes a little more time to cut it apart. One of my favorite cakes is not my recipe, but it's a tiramisu recipe that I got from a friend, and it's in here. And I don't even like coffee. But his tiramisu recipe, I have changed so many people's minds with that recipe. Like, wow, this is the best tiramisu ever. There's no way this is vegan. I've had good-natured arguments with people who just couldn't believe it was vegan. And that's kind of a good thing to have. So I want to know a little bit from you. Think about the 4 categories. I mean, there's lots of categories of relationships, but romantic, neighbors, friends, or coworkers. Okay, so think which one is the hardest for you. Wait, did I say family? Okay, family too. Family. Okay, so there's 5. Okay, so for how many people is family the toughest? Just raise your hand. Maybe a little bit. Okay. How about neighbors? Do you guys eat with your neighbors? Yeah, a little bit neighbors. Okay. How about friends? Friends, like people that you pick to go eat with? A couple of you? Okay. And coworkers? Yeah? Okay. So we've got a bit of a range of different types of people that you interact with. And so let's just kind of hit on them in different directions. First of all, family is supposed to be the hardest. So if you're thinking family, yeah, because they knew you before you became vegan. And I'm assuming that most of the people in the audience are vegan, or at least you're leaning towards going vegan. And the people in your family knew you before you were thinking about this. So they knew what your values used to be, and now you've changed. And maybe they're not ready to change yet, but just you sitting at the table makes them have to self-reflect. What are they eating? And the people who give you the most pushback, I find are the ones who actually go vegan sooner, because you've pricked something in their conscience. Just by being there, just by eating something delicious, just eating something that doesn't have animals, you've gotten them to think. And so family's always going to be hard, which is why a lot of people don't have those conversations with family, because they want to try and preserve their relationship and they know it's not going to go well. You know, what if you're rejecting grandma's meatloaf? She's going to think you're rejecting her. So you've got to be creative about it and tell her, you know, Grandma, how much I love you. I want to honor you and our heritage. Could you give me the recipe, and then maybe I can make a vegan version of it? Or maybe we can work together in the kitchen. I can see your processes, but I pick the ingredients. And so find ways to work together with your family members for the things that are the most valuable, the things that they feel that you're rejecting by doing your vegan stuff. Neighbors, you know, unless you have the kind of neighbor that tosses rotten eggs at your house, you really have the choice to interact with your neighbors or not interact with your neighbors. I happen to love my neighbors. I live on a small street. Most of us know each other. Quite a few of them have been over to my house. One of the neighbors, he's not technically a neighbor, but he used to work at the farm down the street from me. I want to tell you a little bit about him. So I live where there's a lot of snow. You guys are kind of used to lots of snow. But I didn't have anything other than just like a little snow shovel. And I had, you know, this much snow. So he was going to work. He worked where they have a barn and they're raising cows for meat. And so his job is to go take care of the cows. And so he came by one day and he's got a big plow on the front of his truck. And he just started talking to me, and I was like, sure, I'd love to have you plow out my driveway. You know, he's like, no charge, you know, I just want to help you out. So he didn't do the whole thing, but he just did like the big chunk where the snowplow leaves the ice that's really hard to do. And so day after day during this, you know, winter, I would go out there with my shovel, and half the time it had already been plowed out. And so, you know, I felt really appreciative of this guy, but I didn't know how to reach him. Like, what am I going to do? I didn't have his number. So I took a walk over to the barn down the street, and I just put a little note on the door. And I left him my number, and I said, I really appreciate what you've been doing. And so he calls me up, and I said, you know, I don't really know how to express my appreciation to you, but I really enjoy cooking for people. So would I be able to cook for you? You know, could you come over for dinner? So we talked about what his favorite vegetables are, and I don't remember right now what his favorite vegetables were, but he had some. And I remember he loved cherry pie. It was not cherry season, so I bought some frozen cherries and made him a cherry pie. But he had asked, can I bring you some hamburger? Because he gets an unlimited supply from where he works. And I was like, I'm sorry, I really can't accept that as a gift. Please don't bring it, just bring yourself. And I assured him that he would like what he eats. But what do you make for someone who has an unlimited supply of hamburger, eats meat every day of his life, and I want to impress him and I like being creative? And so, yeah, there was a vegetable side dish using all his favorite vegetables. But how do you get to that, like, regular guy who's very set in his ways, who has not experienced the bounty of vegan flavors? So I decided to play with him a little. Has anyone ever made seitan before? Like from scratch? Okay, but do you know what it is? It's like wheat.
I love wheat.
Yeah, okay, so it can be a very complicated process, but I kind of have it down to an art, so it's not that complicated. I mixed a bunch of vegetables in with the wheat gluten, like finely chopped vegetables, a little bit of color and extra flavors and stuff. And then I cut them into nice little shapes, kind of like wishbone there, those sort of shapes, but a little more V-like. And I put it on a pan and I slathered it with barbecue sauce, my own homemade barbecue sauce. And when he came over, you know, we ate the first couple courses. When we got to the main dish, he was like, "What is this?" I said, "Frog legs." He said, "Frog legs? I've never had frog legs." So I found something he had never had. And he had 3 helpings of it, and he said, "Man, you should get the restaurants down in town to serve these frog legs." So you never know who you're going to have the most fun with.
Did you fill him in later that they weren't actually?
Yes, I did explain to him later that they were vegan and they were made from wheat. And he was like, "I don't care that they're vegan and made from wheat. These are good. I want more of these." So, you know, you definitely savor the times that you win someone over to thinking about something they can like. And so that was very fun for me. So he kind of fits in the neighbor category because he was working on my street. Co-workers. Co-workers, you know, if you like your job, you're kind of stuck working with these people. And your co-workers, they can be like the mean kids at school, you know, where you're outnumbered and they can poke fun at you. So someone was asking me earlier about what it was like growing up vegan. Well, for me, it was easy because I was friends with everybody. I always made sure that people knew me for me, got to know my personality before I bothered to tell them, "Oh yeah, I'm one of those weird vegans as well." Which, back in the 70s, that was weird. Okay, now, it's not that weird. So, trying to figure out how to navigate your coworkers, it really, a lot of it depends on where you work. How often do you have to do some sort of a lunch together? Is it something that you can do the potluck and bring a main dish and a dessert so you won't starve and impress people? Or do you go out to restaurants and then do you get stuck eating whatever that restaurant can serve you? For me, if I knew that I'm stuck going to a certain restaurant, I'm going to call that chef ahead of time. And I'm going to explain to them, "Hey, you know, I didn't get to pick what restaurants I'm at, but these days a lot of chefs love the challenge. So I'll explain, you know, can you make something that looks really good and tastes really good, and what can I do to help you figure it out?" And sometimes I'll look at what's on their menu and just come up with ways that we can make some simple substitution based off of what they have on hand. So some chefs really enjoy it and some don't.
I was gonna say, have you ever run into the issue where I run into this with my family? They'll almost try to overcompensate, so they'll Google vegan and they'll pick a restaurant where either it has vegan options that don't do them justice, so then they're eating something they don't like, or it has, like, it's not an entirely vegan restaurant and then their regular food isn't. Do you ever deal with that?
Yeah, so So I was starting to talk about when you don't have a choice
Yeah.
on what restaurant. The better way to do it, which a lot of groups are doing now, including co-working groups, the vegan steers where they go. So they know that you have the most restrictive diet, you're the weird one. A lot of times there's such a respect for people's differences now that they will ask the vegan, where can you find something acceptable to eat? So you want to have a list of go-to restaurants that, depending on what day, what type of event it is, that you know that you can get something delicious. And sometimes they'll even all go to a vegan restaurant just to honor you and to be respectful of your choices. So if you have those kind of coworkers, keep working there because that's a great place to work. What other type of people do we have some difficulties getting along with at the dining table?
Well, I'll just say I try to contribute what I want. So I make what I want and I bring it to that function so that I won't have an issue, because I know that 80%, well, let's say 95% of the people right now in my life, unfortunately, I mean, they're making efforts and they have vegan dishes sometimes, but by and large, they're having that main dish is going to be an animal product and or dairy something or other, and I'm not participating. So I bring my own thing, and they are also cognizant of that and wanting to bring out more options for me. So there's also an effort made, but there's still that main dish. So I don't try and override it or say I'm gonna do the whole, and that's maybe just my shortcoming, that I should make that contribution and make that whole main dish myself. I may be a little apprehensive at this juncture because it's only been a year and a half for me where I've become vegan this past year and a half. So, or almost 2 years. So it's, that's a challenge.
Well,
But
you don't
I
have
don't make
to
it a problem.
it yourself. Like
Yeah.
sometimes, like I had a friend who, he lived by a Whole Foods market. Okay, we ate many meals together that he supplied the food, and I didn't pick up on that it was all from Whole Foods market. It was vegan. He was being respectful of me, and then one day we decided to cook together, and so we had a pretty good array of things that we were making together. I brought all the ingredients with me, but we were at his house. And we were making this chocolate pudding, and I was like, okay, your job is just to stir the pudding. Let me know when it thickens. And he's stirring for a long time. And he's like, Hannah, it's not thickening. I'm like, just keep stirring, it'll thicken. I know my recipe, I know what we're doing here. Finally, I was like, okay, I've done what I'm doing. Why are you still stirring? So I went over there and I looked. Sure enough, it hadn't thickened. So then I figured out that his stove wasn't plugged in. He'd been living there for years. That is, he had never used the stove. So you never know what you're going to encounter. But back more specifically to your thing about a main dish. If you're making a main dish and you're not that great of a cook, just literally learn 2 main dishes out of here. They're super easy. So that way you've got a go-to recipe. The problem that I find is sometimes I'm not first in line. And so the things that I make are so appetizing that by the time I get to the line, it's gone. So sometimes I have to hide a little serving of it to make sure that I get some. Or if I'm feeling really ambitious, I'll make 2 different main dishes and put one over here and one over there. Because I want them to go. I want people to enjoy it, but I don't want to starve, of course. But, I take it as a compliment if I wind up eating, hardly anything, because there's nothing on the table that I can eat because my stuff already got eaten. Yes?
Well, some other people difficulty dining with, some community groups like environmentalists, climate change activists, dog and cat rescues, barbecue.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's
supposedly-
painful. The dog and cat rescue, for example. And then they're barbecuing chicken, pigs, cows. So there's not a really easy way to do that. These days, if you don't want to be making something that looks weird and different, you can grab a plant-based burger, a bag of burgers, something to bring that they can grill that looks the same. Now, it's up to you if you care if it touched You know, if a regular burger touched a vegan burger, that's up to you. I'm not going to tell you where to draw the line. But for me, I prefer to be social. So I will just bring a bag of burgers and then they can cook them up. And I'm always amazed how many people take the vegan burger. So like, again, I have to make sure that I get the vegan burger. Like if I'm the only vegan person and I bring a bag of burgers, there should at least be one for me. So it all depends on where you're at, and you gotta kind of know ahead of time how many burgers to bring. You know, and do you need to bring burgers and sausages and a variety of things as well. But if it's a barbecue, you know, barbecue can get kind of messy with the sauce if you're bringing it. So maybe you bring like a barbecue sauce separate, and you bring your plant-based meat to get heated up. All depends how it is. You can bring barbecue tofu and have it already made and put it out on the table. So then it doesn't look like the burgers, but it might taste better. Barbecue frog legs if you want.
Oh, for sure.
Yes?
Great ideas. Just wanted to ask about how do you go beyond food? Because I've had friends, and I wasn't as creative as you. I just straight up put it on the table. Look, if we're you know, I would really appreciate if we're eating together, that you also eat vegan, and they respect that. So I've not had issue with, you know, trying to convince them to eat vegan with me. But what I did have issue with is getting them to actually take the next step and become vegan. I had this one friend who's watched documentaries. He's, I would say, lacto-ovo pescatarian, and he told me very clearly, you know, I respect what you're doing. I have so much respect for you, for your cause, but I can't give up fish. There's nothing that can make me give up fish, and that I will eat with you vegan and stuff, but don't ask me to give up fish. What do you do in those scenarios?
Well, I think you gotta respect, just like they're respecting that you're vegan, you gotta respect that every person is different. So it may be that you can buy a plant-based fish and blow their socks off, and they could go, wow, I can't even taste the difference. You know, that's the ideal situation, is that you can change their mind, that they're not gonna be missing out. Maybe they're just not quite ready to change. Maybe they're not quite ready to change because it's you. And then they have to admit, you know, in their own mind, they have to admit that they were wrong. And most people aren't ready to admit that they're wrong. So I never try and point fingers at people. I just try to be my welcoming self and appreciate them for who they are. And if they want to have that dialogue, you know, have they gone fishing? Or do they just buy the fish in the store? Because that's one, like, basic way. Okay, do you actually catch your fish and gut it and do everything to it? Because in some ways you have more respect for the person that does that than the person who just buys a package in the store. If they're just buying a package in the store, then what's the difference if it's made of plants or made of fish in terms of what they're purchasing? It makes a big difference to you because you'd like them to eat the plant one. So, you know, get to know the person, be patient with them. You know, I always tell people to think about who they were before they became vegan. And so there was probably one thing that you had the hardest time giving up. But, you know, prior to that, before you even knew that you were on the vegan path, weren't you someone who was kind and compassionate and deserving of being loved? So keep giving them that courtesy, and when the time is right, they will come around. But if you force them to come around, they won't. They will dig in their heels, and they will not want to come see your way of doing it. You never know what's going to hit them. That's why there's so many different animal rights and vegan organizations. It may be that you show them a documentary. You know, hey, you know, I'll watch whatever movie you want on Saturday night if you watch this with me on the next Saturday night. You always got to know what people want. You know, what can they barter. For me, there's a guy who's actually the father of my son, so we were pretty close for a while. And he's never gonna go vegan. And it was painful for me because I would cook amazing dinners, and he loved my cooking. But sometimes we go out to a restaurant, and he would order his regular burger, and I would order my veggie burger. And it was really hard to sit across from him. But especially when you're in that close relationship with someone, then there's a certain like unsaid fight going on sometimes where somebody's gonna be uncomfortable. So then he had the kind of personality where he's gonna make sure that it's me that it's uncomfortable. So he was teasing me about eating my plant burger while he's eating his hamburger. And, you know, we'd been down that conversation before, and this particular evening, I was not into it. Like, no, I'm not gonna put up with this. So I said, give me your hamburger. I'm gonna take a bite of that burger and show you, prove to you that I love you more than any cow. And he said, don't you ever do that. Your values are what I admire in you most. So maybe your friend admires your values, but they're not going to tell you. You know, that was a once in a lifetime that somebody actually told me that after teasing me. So that's why I have to share that with you, because somebody else may be thinking that about you. Any other situations? Yeah?
I mean, for me, I'm just trying to expand my friend circle, my social circle.
Mm-hmm.
To those, by the way, to those whom I haven't seen before, my name's Shamar. I used to come out to all the anonymous events and everything. Haven't been able to do so over the past years because I've been a pretty busy guy, so that's why. Seen some familiar faces there. Like this dude. Hello. How you doing? Yeah. How you doing, everybody? Yeah. How you doing? Yeah. So I've been inviting my friends out. You know, just having a good time. Taking them to like familiar restaurants like Green's Vegetarian. Love that restaurant, by the way. It's like the best Chinese food, vegan. Oh my gosh, paradise. But that's what it takes. You know, just like good. You know, taking your friends out to your favorite restaurants, favorite places, and like. You know, just, yeah.
Yeah, and if they don't want to go to your favorite restaurant, if you can afford to do it, offer to pay. Say, you eat vegan tonight, I'll pay for it. You know?
Well, only if I have the money.
Yeah, if you have the money, and it depends on the friends. But like, if nothing else will get them to go into the vegan restaurant, you know, it might be worth giving it a try.
It's actually not that hard convincing my friends. It's like, hey, you want to go? Yeah, sure. So let's see. What's my calendar look like? That's all it takes.
Good. Well, it sounds like you've got some really good friends.
Thanks.
And so, you know, you said you haven't been here for a while.
I have not, unfortunately.
So, that's okay. I haven't been here ever before. So
Oh.
I've been to Toronto before, but it's my first time in Wishpin. Yeah, I think it depends on your balance of how good your friends are, how willing they are to go and eat with you.
Definitely.
You know, if your friends aren't, then maybe they're not really your close friends. Maybe they're people that you're just gonna like do photography with or take a walk with or whatever. And maybe you have other friends that you want to go to the restaurant with. You never know. And sometimes you can get those friend circles to all go to the same place, or sometimes you have a smaller friend group. You know, if you take 3 people or 6 people, does it really matter as long as you're having a good time?
Yeah.
You know, my favorite is doing a dinner party for about 5 people. And, you know, we can all hear each other, we can all be around the table together and make sure that everybody likes something.
Yes.
And that's fun. I try to do it at least once a month.
Yeah. I had a dinner party over at Green's a couple of weeks ago, just like you. Loved it.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, if you don't love cooking, going to a restaurant, you don't have to do the dishes, you don't have to cook. So much easier. Definitely worth it, unless you really love cooking.
Yeah, but restaurants nowadays are very expensive.
Yes. That's part of why I cook at home, plus I live in the middle of nowhere, so there's not so many options. But when I work, so I don't think I told you guys, I'm no longer doing the dating thing as a full-time job. I'm also not coaching rowing as a full-time job. I'm now the CEO of American Vegan Society. And so that means that I live in Western New York in my cabin in the middle of nowhere half the time, where I can be a hermit, introvert, just chill out and recharge my batteries. And the other half of the time I'm at our headquarters, which is just outside of Philadelphia in New Jersey. But I frequently go to American Vegan Center, which is in Philadelphia. And that's like the opposite. Like I have to be an extrovert. We do a lot of events there. And you know, a lot of people ask me vegan questions and I have to be ready to answer them. And I do enjoy that, but it's very different. So you got to know what your strengths are. My strengths lie in both areas. Oh, yep, and here's a picture. So come to Philadelphia because this bottom section with all the glass is American Vegan Center. And yeah, we are very fortunate to have a great place to do cooking demos, lectures, book signings. We feature a lot of the local restaurants, the vegan restaurants. So yeah, come on down to Philadelphia. We're open Wednesday to Sunday afternoons. And you know, even if we don't have an event going on that day, there's plenty of stuff to browse. We've got food available from local entrepreneurs. And we try to really support the vegan scene in Philadelphia.
All right, sounds good. The moment that I get myself a new passport, I'm gonna come down there, 'cause
I can't help you with that, but yes, you do need a good passport. And yeah, I didn't have any problems coming into your country. But the line going the other direction was very long. So
Yeah, I can imagine.
yeah, just plan ahead. Yeah, does anyone have any other questions? Yes, Anita.
And where did you come up with the idea of tell me your 3 favorite vegetables?
It just honestly just came out of my brain one day because I wanted to cook for somebody, and I don't even remember which person I wanted to cook for. It was probably the first guy in here, Paul. And yeah, let me just tell you a little bit about Paul. So Paul was a wrestling coach, and he was teaching me how to wrestle because I was a rowing coach, and our rowing team, they were a little soft that year. And so my coworker, the head coach, was like, yeah, do you know how to wrestle? Because like maybe we could bring some of that intensity into our rowing program. So I learned to wrestle for a year from this coach Paul. And I wanted to thank him because like he gave me free wrestling lessons for a year so that I could then train the rowers in wrestling. We actually made some national news in wrestling and rowing circles for the crazy cross training we were doing. Anyway, so Paul said he'd like a dinner of meat. I said, I'm vegan, I don't know how to cook meat. When are you coming to dinner? Tonight? He said, no thanks, I'm having a power bar. Paul Bergman is a rugged, healthy, confident guy who appears afraid of nothing. Perhaps he feared the unknown of vegan meal. So yeah, he was probably the first one that I asked, you know, what his 3 favorite things are. And being a typical, you know, athletic man, he likes, I don't think it says exactly his vegetables in here, but based off of what I made for him, he likes, oh wait, here it is. Okay. When I asked Paul what his 3 favorite vegetables were, he replied, salsa. I wondered if he came from the kind of background where ketchup is considered a vegetable, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Besides salsa, what vegetables do you like? Potatoes, corn, and mushrooms, he replied. Paul's portobello potatoes uses all 3 of his favorite vegetables, and they're even topped with salsa. So yeah, we just take whatever someone gives. His dessert, we called them takedown chocolate brownies. I had to use a wrestling term in there. And the secret ingredient in there is a little bit of sweet potato, some yam, because that helps bind it together, takes the place of some of the sweetener in there. And he loved them. But he knew I was a cookbook author. He already had a copy of Healthy Hearty Helpings, which you all leave with tonight because I'm giving you all a copy of that book. Anyway, so he already had a copy of that. He already knew I was vegan. And he said that his favorite dessert was brownies. So I said, okay, well, I want to make you really good brownies, but I'm not really a good brownie maker yet. I don't have a lot of experience. So let me bring you some brownies, you know, just bring into work and you test them and let me know what to change. Because he's like, oh, I can do brownies. So every week I'd bring him another batch of brownies. He'd be like, yeah, a little too soft, a little too moist, need a little more chocolate. Yeah, these are getting close, but they're a little too flat, make them a little higher. No, this is too much like cake. So I think I brought him like a dozen different batches of brownies. Turns out they were all okay. There was nothing wrong with them. He just liked my brownies that much. Yes?
Have you ever had an experience with someone who really cared about your veganism, respected it, even made huge changes in their lifestyle? Very, very supportive, understands what you believe in, and they're almost there. 90% there, like say 90% plant-based and 10% vegetarian. But they just don't make that extra effort to make sure they're all the way there. Like my family, my parents, very supportive. Like when I visit them, they make sure everything is vegan. They'll eat everything vegan. When I go to my relatives, they'll make sure my relatives are making everything vegan. That's supportive, that caring, because they really care about me, they love me. And they gave up eating animals because of me, and they would avoid, other animal products where possible. But they're not vegan, so vegan, in Indian culture, if you go to your relative, they'll offer some tea and biscuits or cookies, and so as vegans, we make sure that cookies are vegan, biscuits are vegan, but they'll be like, yeah, so they don't make that extra effort. There are other things like, if they're offered sweets or dessert, they won't make sure it's vegan. So I would love for them to make that full transition.
So are you expecting them to fully make sure that the biscuits or cookies are
That's
vegan
just one
for you
example.
when you come over? Or do you want to go into their house and look in their pantry and have it be totally vegan?
That
What is your
latter.
real goal?
Latter.
Yeah, and so that's the difficulty because they're your family. They remember who you were before you went vegan. And they might not be totally ready to change. And sometimes it's an external influence that's going to kick them over, and it's probably not going to be you. Okay, you can bring in vegan cookies and have them go, wow, it's the best cookie ever. But because you brought them in, they're not going to like them. Just because they remember who you used to be. So sometimes having somebody else have that conversation, sometimes it's a movie, sometimes it's taking them to an event. Sometimes you can have someone else influence them. And then sometimes you just have to realize that family and friends who have known you for a long, long time are the toughest people to get to. And so that's why in here, not only are there the stories of me and all my dating and relationships and stuff, but I talk about different compatibility issues. How do I feel about if someone wears leather? How do I feel if somebody's wearing wool? How do I feel if there's silk sheets on the bed? Well, if your parents are sleeping on silk sheets, that's none of your business, okay? But if someone invites you to be in their bed and they have silk sheets, then it is your business. So you have to decide what's really important to you. When someone comes to my house, I don't frisk them and make sure that they're not wearing a leather belt, okay? I'm happy that they're coming to my house and that I have a chance to interact with them. But if I were to marry them, then maybe it's different. Then maybe you can say, well, I want to have a totally vegan household. I'd really appreciate it if you wore this belt instead of that belt. And then it's a give and take. There must be something that they want. Okay, well, I don't want silk sheets. Okay, fine. They want the room to be painted blue. And they want blue sheets. Well, your favorite color is red. So which is more important? You want sheets that you feel comfortable sleeping on. Your eyes are going to be closed anyway, so who cares what color they paint the walls? Okay, so you gotta find it's a give and take. But with your parents, they're gonna love you no matter what. And that should be the goal.
Yeah, I think it's slightly different because I don't even have to take vegan cookies. My mom would make really good vegan cookies for me, or even if I ask her to make it, one day, she'll make it even when I'm not there.
Mm-hmm.
They have changed like the whole like events menu
Mm-hmm.
because I
For you.
requested.
That's great.
So yeah, so they're in their
But they
case.
don't do it if you're not around. That's
Yeah,
the
they just
problem.
don't care that much. Like
Well,
they
sad
care a
as it
lot,
is-
but not as much as I would like them to. It's like
Well, sad as
Yeah.
it is, it may be a health crisis that kicks them over to your way of thinking. It may be, there's so many people who have some heart attack, stroke, something. And even if it doesn't happen to them, it might happen to their best friend or their neighbor or something like that. Some other thing that's gonna force them to really think about what they're doing. Or maybe they're concerned about climate change. Maybe they start learning about what actually happens to the animals. But family is the toughest.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I was just gonna say, for me, and this is why I think education is everything, because if it's documentaries, and I think for me, being a visual learner, and so many of my friends and my family and so on are, that if you can put them in front of any of those, game changers, like I still haven't watched Dominion because it's too hard for me. I know I'm a wuss. But, what the health, there's so many different Earthlings and other documentaries that gradually say, we're going to watch this tonight. Even if it's like, we're going to watch 20 minutes, okay? Can you do 20 minutes? Okay, can you do 25? Are you liking this? Do you think it's good? Like, something like that, because that will give them like a kind of a aha moment. Maybe not immediately, but they'll start to connect the dots, at least about their pet, and then oh yeah, well that's a pig, and that's someone's pet too, or they should be treated the same way,
Yeah,
and all
pick
those things, right?
exactly what those 20 minutes are. Like pre-screen
Yes.
the movie.
Pre-screen,
Pick
exactly.
what it is.
Right.
And if that means that you have to go bowling with them the next night because you don't even like bowling, do
Yeah.
it. Okay?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
everybody always wants something.
Yes.
The
Yes.
world is a give and take. So before we go on to you, I know you're next. I am terrible at doing those self-promotion things, but since you said that there are lots of people watching, American Vegan Society, we have a website, americanvegan.org, where there's tons of vegan information on there. We are the longest running national vegan organization in the United States, founded in 1960. We run the American Vegan Center in Philadelphia, and we also do a lot of welcoming people to veganism. So we have national programs that help people learn the basics of veganism, as well as helping build national vegan community, giving people ideas of things to do to connect with others wherever they live. So we're also on social media, either American Vegan Society, or on Instagram it's American Vegans with an S at the end. And so I really appreciate everybody checking out, especially if you never heard of us, because we're kind of the best kept secret, but we're trying to change that now. And so American Vegan Society. Okay, your turn.
I just wondered if you had any thoughts about receiving gifts,
Oh,
whether
good
it's the chocolate with the dairy in it, or something with honey in it, or for me, the hardest ones are the lovingly made mittens that my sister-in-law has spent probably a long time making, or a sweater. Yeah, I can put them away, but she's gonna notice if I never wear them. The chocolates I can kind of put away and not just
Give them to someone who would
give-
actually eat them.
I guess, yeah.
something,
I
but-
mean, I would prefer to say, please don't buy these, but sure.
But if it already exists and it's already been
True,
bought,
true.
yeah, it's called an
Um,
ethical dilemma. So
Right.
you have a lot of different ways you could do it.
Right.
You could thank her
Mm-hmm.
and give her back the chocolates and say how much you appreciate
That
it.
wouldn't go well.
Okay, so you know that won't go well.
Yeah.
Sometimes receiving a gift is all about just appreciating the person. Like, they're not doing it to try and undermine your values. They're doing it because they love you and they want to give you a gift.
True,
So
but what
you
I'm
can take it.
Yeah, the only drawback with that, and that's what I've done, is that she seems to think I like whatever it is, so then I'm
Well,
this
next
constant
time-
cycle.
Next time,
Yeah.
give her some vegan chocolates that are amazing and say, I really appreciate what you gave me, but this is my preferred brand.
Yeah,
You know, make it something that she can easily get for you, because this is someone you have an ongoing relationship with.
yeah,
So you can't just accept the chocolates once, give them to your neighbor who's actually gonna eat them, and
Yeah.
have the problem go away.
right.
It's gonna keep coming back and back and back.
Yeah,
So,
and you do, like you say, you wanna preserve relationships and
Mhm.
families, so it's hard,
yeah, a gift is really more about the giver
yeah.
having the opportunity to give a gift. And so your job as a receiver is to receive the gift. Your job as a receiver is not that you have to keep it, but if they made it, you know, like the mittens that they knitted
Yes.
for hours and hours and hours, then, you know, maybe you figure out what is that yarn. And maybe you go buy a vegan version of the yarn and you give her the raw materials that would be
Okay.
acceptable to you
Yeah.
and say,
That's a good idea.
those were the most beautiful mittens I've ever had. Could you make me a pair that goes with my coat that I would like even more and I would wear them all the time, you know, in the winter? You know, come up with some way where it's not objectionable and you're not rejecting her. And then when she presents you with that other pair, you say, you know, how much you love them so much more. And would she be able to give that other pair that you haven't worn, they're still new, would she be able to give them to someone else who would appreciate them? Or would it be okay if you gave them, you know, give them away to charity,
Yeah,
you know, to someone who's cold who really needs them?
yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
I think probably the most difficult thing I've had about vegan food and relationships is with co-activists, like in especially the climate activists. You go to a climate event, they have ham sandwiches, and you try to. They haven't made the connection, and you try to make the connection. Talk about the plant-based treaty or animal agriculture, the ethics, and
They
it
just don't
doesn't
get it.
get very far. Or
Yeah.
it's difficult,
Yeah.
and so
Um,
I end up a lot of times not going anymore.
Well, you can choose to not go, but then you're missing the opportunity to possibly have a little bit of a change. You know, is it a potluck that you're going to? Is it a catered event? You know, where's the opportunity to have a dialogue? Is it to have a dialogue with a chef so that they make sure to make something vegan for you? Is it to bring something vegan that people like? Is the real problem with the organizers and not the attendees? Because maybe the organizers need to know that there's a vegan contingent coming. And so maybe you need to just bring a bunch more of your vegan friends and say, hey, there's 6 of us that are vegan, because we're not going to listen to just one of you. But, you know, if there's a few of you, then, you know, maybe you can get in that way. It is one of the most frustrating things in our movement, is to know that, you know, people that maybe do dog and cat rescue or maybe are doing environmental issues, that they don't get it. They get a certain part of the issue, whereas we get the whole big issue. And it is very frustrating, and you will meet lots of people who are very frustrated by the same thing. So just analyze what that exact situation is, and if you have any control, any way of changing the narrative a little bit. But not going, only if you're spending your time wisely doing something else that's really helping the world.
I was just agreeing with
Agree?
you.
Okay, good. I like when people agree with me, but.
But I do want to ask you a question though.
Uh-huh.
So, relationships with while being a vegan can be very, 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 very tricky.
Mhm.
I myself haven't really gone on any dates or anything. And I don't think that I'm prepared to do that right now, but it seems like it's kind of like, there's definitely going to be like a crossroads, right?
Mhm.
You know, one is I'm vegan, and the other, and the person I may be going out with may not be a vegan. So how do I cross that bridge? You know, it's.
Yeah. So you've somewhere in your life had an opportunity to learn about vegan. So this person that maybe you have other things in common, you know, the most common is they're attractive, so I like them. Okay, but maybe you have common hobbies, you know, it depends on how you met. Maybe your friends set you up because they think you should like this person. You know, you never know how you're gonna meet up with them. So the first thing is just to understand that they probably didn't have the same opportunities to learn as you have had. For me, that's really one of my guiding principles in life, is that I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say nobody in this room had the kind of upbringing that I had. Okay, my parents were vegetarian since birth. All 4 of my grandparents had become vegetarian before my parents were born. And then my parents went vegan in Dad 1957, Mom 1960. They married each other because back then they were afraid that they would never meet another vegan, so they had to get married.
Oh, not because they love each other.
So-
Well, they did love each other, but still, you know, that's the way the story goes.
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of like obligatory. Like, oh no.
No, they were very much in love, and they worked together, for the next 40 years, running American Vegan Society side by side. So it's amazing when you find someone who has that connection with you. But back to you specifically, you don't know when you're gonna meet someone that has that amazing connection who goes vegan for you. Because although you can go vegan for health reasons, you can go vegan for the animals, you can go vegan for environment, the 4th reason why people go vegan is relationships. Because you are that much of a gem that they want to be more like you, that they want to share something that is done every single day, which is eating together.
Right.
They want to do that with you, and you are that valuable of a person that they're willing to change for you. So you gotta have confidence in yourself that the right person out there will probably change for you, but give them time. You know, there are some people that take 10 years to change over to being vegan. Now it's a whole lot easier these days than it was back in the 80s.
For sure.
But
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
definitely.
if you pressure them, they're not gonna go. But if you just keep being your shining self, you know, if it's the right person, they'll come along.
Definitely.
So just don't hide it from them, because any relationship's got to be built on trust. So whether you tell them on the first date or the 3rd date that you're vegan, that's up to you. But let them know that's a big part of who you are, and if they're right for you, they'll really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds good.
And the other thing is, you can take one of these and just stick it on the coffee table, and people start flipping through it and go, that's why he thinks the way he does. So like, you don't necessarily even have to have that conversation with them, because I can have that conversation with them instead.
All right, that sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Or shall we finish up the vegan food that's on the table?
Do you want to say something about the center?
I think Anne covered it mostly.
Okay. Well, Rican works with me at American Vegan Center.
Yeah.
Do you want to just
Oh,
Come on
yeah,
up.
sure. So I'm the assistant director at the American Vegan Center in Philadelphia. I'll give my speech that I give people when they come in. Basically, we have informational material, grab-and-go food. We do events like cooking demos, activist networking. We try to be a community hub for anyone already vegan, interested in veganism, or just coming in off the street to experience what it's like to be at the forefront and understand veganism. But it's not always the center of what we do. We have other kinds of community things that we bring people together, but the food is always vegan. So they're always taking something away. So it's kind of being that nudging hand at the beginning for people.
Why do you do 5-minute cooking demos?
We do them because we have we live in a neighborhood that has a big event every first Friday. It's called First Friday. A lot of art galleries do events, and we wanted to be a part of it. And a lot of times people are walking in and out of places, so we wanted something that was every half hour, that was quick, that was easy, that they could take home the recipe with them, that they could see people in the kitchen cooking and be like, what's going on in there as they're walking to their next art gallery. So that's how that idea came.
So did they get a sample? So it's 5
Yeah,
minutes.
they can. Yeah.
Wait a minute, 5-minute cooking? What can you cook in 5 minutes?
Oh, lots of
I mean, you have to have prepared stuff for
Sometimes it's pre-chopped. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
as easy as making like guacamole.
Oh yeah, right. Or a
Sometimes,
smoothie.
yes,
or
a
something.
smoothie. We
Yeah.
had someone I work with made matcha.
Mhm.
But she had the whole matcha kit and was, grinding the powder. Bean dips. We've had cashew cheese balls where they, blend it up in front of you and then roll it in holiday things. there's a lot you can do, or you can fake it, like Anne's son faked barbecue tofu. Well, it took him 5 minutes to put the barbecue sauce on the tofu and prep it for the oven, but then it took 30 minutes in the oven. But he kind of just turned around and was like, "Aha!" So we get creative sometimes, but they did originate as you can do this in 5 minutes.
That's great. That's really great. Can I have another question? Because I meant to say, you asked about the 3 vegetables or the favorites, but what about the protein source? How do you decide? Like, what is one of the main? Like, are you a tofu? Are you beans? Are you like what is
I like
it?
a variety.
Or do you just base it on what their favorite thing is?
See,
those
you gotta
things?
play into their perceptions.
right.
Okay, if they know what vegan is, they think you eat vegetables. So go for it. That's where the vegetables thing comes from. Okay, they're not figuring out, oh, there's tofu, there's all these different kinds of beans, there's all these kinds of nuts. I always ask what they're allergic to.
Yeah.
But then, I have the choice of what kind of protein is going to make their vegetables taste good.
Okay.
But yeah, there definitely is a protein in there.
Well, because I know there's a lot of vegetables that have a lot of protein. There is no question. But I'm just saying that normally, there's that meat and potato kind of personality person. Where's the meat?
Yeah.
To think, okay, do you draw on like the seitan? Are you doing that gluten? Like that little mini roast that you can make with the wheat gluten or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd like to have something that is blatantly protein.
Yeah.
Because that's so many people's fear. Is,
Right.
you can't survive just on vegetables. I
Right.
need a real protein. So I do use some kind of protein.
Yeah.
Can you say something about your book? So hopefully people here will buy copies of your book.
Okay. So this one's Dating Vegans. It's basically a treasure trove of ideas for easy made dishes and desserts. There's some other things in there as well, but once you get a couple of good main dishes and a couple of good desserts, you can do pretty much everything with them. And then
And that's selling for like $15, $20. If anybody would like to purchase it, that'd be great.
And then I'd like everybody in the audience to go home. Sorry, not the people at home, but those in the audience physically to go home with a copy of this book. Very simple recipes, also very easy for you to get started if you don't know how to cook. So take this with my compliments. You can also take a sample copy of our magazine. Unfortunately, our latest issue just came out a couple days ago, and it's not here with me because I had to travel. But this is a wonderful issue. It talks about my mom, Dinshah, and her contributions to the movement for the past 65 years.
Wow.
So please take one of those with you. If you want to become a member, you can become a member at AmericanVegan.org. We do the print version of the magazine because a lot of people like to have a print thing. They like to go sit under a tree, enjoy holding it. And there's something very powerful of giving that to someone else when you're done reading it. But we also do it as a PDF for people who are concerned about the trees making paper. But do take this with you, and when you're done reading it, give it to someone who needs it more than you do. We also have a free email newsletter, so even though you're in Toronto, you can learn about the events that we have so that you can plan your trips to other places. And so there's an email sign up there. We also brought some t-shirts. These are available online. This is a long sleeve t-shirt. This Go Vegan is based off of the Love statue in Philadelphia. So if that was an LOVE in Philadelphia, and it uses the same colors as the Love statue, but it's Go Vegan. And then we have our, you should just come and pull it out. Then we have our American Vegan Center shirt. This cow here is like a calf version of the full-size, life-size cow that we have. We have a plush cow in the center that people come in and take selfies, and it helps them connect with their compassion. Because a lot of people don't realize how soft and kind cows are, and so they come and they give it a hug. And then it says, "Thanks for being a friend, American Vegan Center." So this is the back of it. And Anita's sporting one very proudly today. There she is. You too can look like this. So we have a lot of other things online, so you're welcome to check out our whole selection at AmericanVegan.org.
Thank you so much. Does anybody want to do the thank you?
Thank you.
Peter, did you want to step up and do the thank you?
I was going to also recommend that people get involved in activism, and it's a great way to meet people and make friends and have relationships. I mean, I went halfway around the world to meet someone who lived a quarter of the way around the world, and ended up getting married. People think we're a good team together. But yes, thank you very much, Anne, for sharing your insights and your stories and your food ideas and all that. That was great. Thank you very much for all your input.